Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new Apex irons from Callaway.
I would think it was mission accomplished, at least for the first day, to get yourself up the board, right?
For sure. No, it's a weird spot to be in. I was joking with Scottie and saying, I forget who we were talking with yesterday, but just being in the position I'm in, I was like, I feel like I kind of had a decent idea of what the rest of the week would hold through 12 or 13 holes. You know what I mean? It's like, obviously you have a lot of golf left, but if you're one or two over through 12, when you're starting where I am, it's a bit of a buzzkill. But I played really solid today, and just felt like I kind of took advantage of the chances I had.
You were talking yesterday about you didn't know how many birdies were out there, but you made 7. Were you surprised the green seemed a little more receptive? I mean, how did that go?
They definitely seem more receptive than I thought that they have been. Or, I don't know if they just put a lot of water on them or what, but they definitely were holding better than I thought. I think they did a great job with some of the pins. I mean, the par threes, if they had the pins tucked up front, that they moved the tees up. I mean, number 2, that pin would have been impossible, with the 6 or 7 or even an 8 iron from the back today. So
hard 9, right?
Exactly. It is what it is, and I feel like they'll kind of, I'm sure, go in waves of how they'll set the course up. But it was, I thought, fairly gettable today.
It's not getting any cooler, Rory.
It's not. Look, August in the south. I've been coming back here for 12 years, so it's to be expected. But yeah, it was hot and humid, and it's just this week's all about just trying to conserve as much energy as possible, and I think it's going to get a little cooler at the weekend, which is nice. But I'm happy with how I hung in there and had a good finish, and when I saw Scottie had gotten to 14, I was like, gotta try to just hang on to the coattails a little bit. So still feel like I've got a chance, and it was nice to finish the way I did.
What are your thoughts on the restoration?
I love the restoration. I love the golf course. It's probably 6 months away from being perfect just because of the firmness of the greens. But I've always liked Andrew Green's work. I like what he did at Congressional. I like what he did at Oak Hill. I like some of the other things. I haven't been there physically, but I've seen. I like that the ball repels off the greens. I like that it gives you options. I think a lot of these aprons, it really gives guys a chance to sort of shine and show how good their short games are, because you can play all sorts of different chips, and you can putt it, you can bump it, you can fly it and try to spin it. So I love that. I love that side of it. I think he's probably made it a little less penal off the tee just by clearing some of the trees, but then I think he's made it a little more penal around the green. So I think overall, I don't think the course plays that much differently apart from the par 5 14th. But I like what he's done, and I like golf courses that sort of stretch out the playing areas and expand the playing areas a little bit. And I think he's done a great job.
Xander, solid day. How would you kind of assess it?
It was all right. I mean, kind of hit it in the rough a lot, and with brand new greens, it's just, I think I scored okay actually for how bad I hit it. Overall it was kind of a meh day. Wasn't really something to be proud of or disgusted by.
You've talked about this course kind of playing it in a practice round, first competitive round. Did it kind of fit that similar, very firm way you expected it to play? Yeah,
I mean, it was pretty straightforward. I think like Scottie was almost in every fairway. It looked like he was kind of going through wedge practice while he's out there. So if you're in the fairway, you can attack this golf course, and I think they've been pretty fair with how they put the pins and the tees, knowing how firm the greens are. So I think the tour did a good job there, not really putting too many par threes at over 200 yards, kind of hugging that 190 to sort of 170-ish range.
Particular thing feel off about your swing?
Started off hitting it okay. Yeah, probably just reverted back a little bit. I'm going to go, unfortunately, hit some balls now with the setting sun here, but I'll figure it out.
I think you said this time of year fighting maybe a little bit of fatigue and getting into old patterns. Is that just kind of the case after a long season?
I was getting into old patterns when I was juiced up, so it's just something you do. when you're trying to get out of a pattern, you kind of fight to get in a good spot, and then you kind of slip out of it, and then you fight to get back in it. So I got 3 more days.
What do you attribute that to, especially on the new course and the layout?
Yeah, I just after 9, I just told myself to start only thinking about my shot and not worrying about if the ball's gonna be perfect or not. And we executed some shots, made some putts. Look, the game's good enough to come out here and win. I just got to get out of my own head, and I've talked a lot about that. It's hard because you try and perfect this game, and it is what it is. Sometimes it doesn't go your way, but you make doable scores, and today it just got in a nice rhythm kind of around that turn.
Was this one of those runs you've talked about seeking?
Yeah, I wish it started on hole 1, but it's going to be a good reminder kind of going into the next 3 days that, I just got to see my shot and execute. I was just thinking a little bit too much, and not that I'm trying to do too much, but just there's this nice flow and rhythm, in your routine sometimes when you're playing well, and it's how do you find that? And sometimes it's just barely off, but it causes some bad shots.
Was any of that from knowing the greens were that firm and you were trying to be too perfect? Or?
No, honestly, it's just me. I get in my own head. It's what I end up trying to do a lot of the times, and it kind of goes against me a lot of the times when you try and do that, when you try and play golf.
In your head, why?
Just because I want to see the perfect shot. I want to see this kind of high peely cut that I've always hit, and you work so hard on the range and the weeks before to hit this shot, and sometimes it doesn't produce that, but it doesn't mean that's you have to play golf like that. And at the end of the day, it's like I'm trying to hit it 150 yards. I just want to land 150 yards and let it figure out from there. So, it's knowing what to accept and what not to accept out there.
You don't seem like you're thrilled, though.
No, I am. Well, it's the first day.
Yeah.
I got 3 more days.
You played well here. Is the course fundamentally different than it was in the past because of redesign, or as you pointed out, make a lot of birdies different?
Yeah. Yeah, you hit some different shots. The looks into the greens, the approach shots are very different. Back before, the greens were pretty standard. They were just kind of circular, all back to front, not a lot of slope. You got a lot more slope now, so I think it penalizes you a little bit more if you're in the rough. You're going to get jumpers, so you can't necessarily just run it up and just end up in the middle of the green as easy as you did before. But with those slopes and with wedges in your hand, you're able to kind of knock it a little closer to some holes because of those slopes and use the slopes. So there's a balance. You hit it well, just like any other course. You're going to give yourself opportunities, but definitely played a little bit shorter than I thought it was. Maybe just because of the wind direction that we had today versus kind of what we had in the practice rounds.
I'm trying not to think much about the starting stroke stuff. I think it's still a bit weird with it not being a traditional event, but it was nice to get off to a good start in the first round, and I felt like I did a lot of things well today.
Just did the course kind of play how you expected it to play after a couple days practice?
I was more interested to see how they wanted to set up the golf course, because if they wanted to set up as hard as they possibly could, I think you get into an area where with new greens and the way the run-ups are still a little softer because they're new as well, you could end up in some spots where you're not really rewarding good shots. And I felt like today the golf course was set up in a way in which the good shots were rewarded. And if you're coming out of the rough to these pins, it's still very difficult to hold the green. So anytime you're in the rough, you're really struggling to try and make par. And I thought it was an appropriate setup today.